Hi, I'm Mike Dano. I'm an editor here at Light Reading, and with me today is Todd Krautkremer from Cradlepoint. So Todd, thanks so much for being here today at the big 5G show with everybody else here. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
And so here at the show, Cradlepoint has been talking a whole bunch about private wireless networks. That is a bit, and you're not the only one. Lots of people here have been talking about private wireless networks and the applications that they will be able to support, and the interesting business cases that are possible through private wireless networks, and of course the revenue opportunity, which is not inconsequential. So you're sort of deep involved in this topic with Cradlepoint. I wondered if you could talk about the business model for this for the customer, for the actual company or whoever it is who's buying this private wireless network, and how are they going to pay for this thing? And why is that important?
And it's very much we're in the early days of private 5G, so a lot will play out, but you're already starting to see shape take place. So I'm happy to talk about some of the use cases and how I see them mapped to private 5G. Now, why am I sitting here with you? I mean, Cradlepoint, of course, has been a part of cellular networking for a long time.
Right.
Every router, every gateway build has a cellular connection. And of course, we're first in 5G in our second generation, and 5G, private 5G is really taken off, so that's why I'm here today. But let's talk about private 5G. It exists because there's this intersection between 5G, the technology, which we've talked a lot about at the show, and some of the use cases that are kind of bubbling to the fore. And many of these use cases are really driven out of the pandemic and organizations' responses.
Right.
So specific to the models, I really see two. I see kind of this managed service model that is evolving to be as a service model, right? Where people want the value of private 5G, but they don't want to build a mini carrier network, right? They want it to act a lot like Wi-Fi does in the enterprise. So we see this today in a lot of public school settings where you have remote learning now is a staple. By the way, it's not going away when the pandemic's over. I think there'll be remote learning as part of education going forward. But the problem is, how do you connect all these underconnected people? And how do you do it in a way where you're not paying the carrier every month for a recurring cost of that data plan? Well, the answer is 5G for organizations like Murray City School in Utah, and like what's happening with Dr. Niefeld in the central coast of California. They're actually building a private 5G network to reach students in their home 4 miles away. It's very logical, wide area LAN, right? It's close proximity to schools, how it works. And they don't want to become experts in mini carriers. They want to just deliver this technology as a service. And we're starting to see some of the ecosystem players, like resellers, start to deliver managed services. So there's a use case that is tailor-made to get private 5G as a service as that evolves. Start with managed service, ultimately become as a service. Now let's talk about areas where I think it'll be an infrastructure sale.
And so that's one way, is the managed service.
Yes.
And so they pay for that they pay for that how?
Well, they pay for it today. Unfortunately, at the stage we're at, they buy the infrastructure, or they have some partner buy the infrastructure and deliver it to them as a managed service where they pay monthly.
Okay.
It's not quite SaaS, right? But it's on that glide slope.
Gotcha.
The commercial model is, we want to pay for this monthly, we don't want to run it, we want the value.
Right. It's the Netflix of 5G.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but
and that's happening.
Okay, and you're saying there's a different track aside from that.
And there's a different track aside from that, and these are organizations with large IT teams that see it as essential infrastructure. Now these are, think of major distribution companies, express shipping companies. I won't name any of them, they're all customers of Cradlepoint. But they're the size of 6-8 football fields, and they have to go outside the building and deal with all the trucks and the shuttles to orchestrate the whole problem of how do I get product through my facility as fast as possible in automated fashion. They're setting up tons of cameras, they're setting up tons of automation. So the density of connections across this very large 6 football fields going outside is very, very high. And it lends itself to private 5G more than other technologies like Wi-Fi.
Okay.
But they, as IT specialists, see IT as integral to their competitive advantage, will want to embrace it as a technology build it as a technology, use it as a technology, just like they do Wi-Fi. So it's more of a standard, I'm going to acquire the technology, build it, and I'm going to manage and run it with my teams type of model. So I see those two models emerging even in the early days, and will lead to full commercialization, I think, down those lanes, if you will.
And do you expect both of those to continue into the future, or is there one model that you're kind of
No, I really do.
Really,
because think about it, by being able to consume it as a service and not having to be a mini carrier, so to speak, you've made the technology more widely available to so many organizations that desperately need it. And schools is a great example. They desperately need the ability to connect the underconnected. And what technology is better than private 5G? But if they have to, with their limited IT resources, become experts, managers, it'll never happen, right? It'll collapse under its own weight. But if they can find a way to consume it as a service, even as a managed service in the short term, now you can see how that need can be met with the technology in a way that they can consume it. So I do see both these models developing in the early days and developing on parallel tracks.
There you go. Well, we'll see how it pans out then.
We will.
Todd, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks.